Hello everyone, today we'll be talking about the foxhole dev stream that just got released. And we've got a lot to cover here. I think this is the biggest foxhole update that's ever been released. Like, we're getting not only a huge combat update, but we're also getting a very big logi update. So let's do this fast. So let's get started. So first of all, we're gonna be able to create a floor basically that we can build up for the new logi system where you're making bases. So there's a first tier that is going to be made using the new coal resource that's in the game, and then you build it with a CV, and then the tier 2 will be you will need concrete for that. So the next thing is you're gonna have train tracks that you can make and make minecarts and trains on them. You can make roads, which are going to be fun. Quick side note, these all are going to take G-subs, so might not be that fun. But there's also two new base resources that have been added. There's um, been added coal, and there has been added water. Also, fuel has been completely reworked, so I don't think you're going to be able to make them out of you're gonna be able to make diesel out of scrap anymore, but there seems to be a lot more ways to get it now. Use these little machines here on the screen to get water from the rivers, and you transport it with the pipes into your base. It seems you can do the same thing for oil, except on oil nodes. Oil is going to be much easier to get in this update, apparently. Coal, um, its main use seems to be you can burn it, and there's now electricity in the game, so that's gonna be fun. And then you can also use coal for your trains, which is something we'll talk about later. So, as I said, there's now 6 types of resources. There is scrap, components, sulfur, and oil, like there used to be. But there is also water and coal now for your base resources. There seems to be a huge amount of new crafted resources. So there's at least 5 new types of fuel. I predict one of these is going to be for infantry flamethrowers. Another one is for vehicle flamethrowers. And then the other 3 are just more fuel recipes, probably used in rockets, maybe? I honestly don't know. Um, so you are now I think the biggest thing about this update, you are now able to make logi hubs yourself. All the buildings, it seems that you could that were the normal logi towns you are going to be able to make these on the foundations that I mentioned earlier. Some other side notes. Well, I say side notes, but they're still extremely big. These should be an update on their own. But you have permanent fuel storage, which is going to be nice, and then you have powered harvesters. So the way these work is you put them on a salvage field, and they will harvest the nodes that have not yet been deployed onto uh like I'm talking about the when you click on it or when you hover over the scrap field when it says like times 169. That's where you're going to be able to harvest with these harvesters, not the actual things that you can hit with a hammer. And then of course we can put ammo on stacks, like on these big crate things, which seems nice. So there is obviously some new logi vehicles that I know we've all been asking for. So there's the new crane, as we can see here. I think it's called the Sky Hauler. Um, we got the new minecart and the new train. All of these are non-faction specific. But the minecart seems to be an early game. It it has a flatbed and a minecart. The flatbed can probably hold small crates, maybe small vehicles, or the flatbed part, and then the minecart is like it's like the dump truck raw resource version. Um, and then with the new garage or vehicle assembly, as it's called in game, you're now going to be able to make these vehicles on the front line probably and repair them. You can also modify them now. So you take the base outlaw, or you take the base hatchet or whatever, and then you can put different modifications on top of that, like in the field, which is very big. Also, upgrading to tier 2 and 3, we don't know exactly what you're required to do that, but it's not based on the tech level anymore. Like, you're not gonna have to wait 2 months to get your tier 3 Bardiche or whatever. Now on to combat. So collies and wardens, the infantry both got a flamethrower, which is very nice. Wardens get an O'Brien tracked variant that has a flamethrower on it, and it also has tank armor, which is a big thing to mention because tank armor is much better than the shitty little armored car armors. The collies also get a flame tank. Um, Wardens get a flame, the Noble Widow variant that is a flame tank. It's the Warden Flame Destroyer or whatever. Collies get a flame light tank. So flame mechanic. So first of all, it can obviously do damage to you. It can also catch structures on fire, which will do damage to you. Also, this can spread dynamically with the wind, but water will be able to put it out. Okay, so they've actually switched the HV versions, and they've also, at least in the dev stream, they said they've drastically decreased their power. So the collies now have an HV 40, and the wardens have an HV 68. Don't expect like the insane amounts of damage they used to do. I think that's what they're scaling back. We also have two new push gun, or actually three new push gun variants, but we'll get to that one later. We have the wardens have a 75 millimeter push gun, which is the push gun that or it's the millimeter type battle tanks used to have. So enjoy that. Actually, I've looked at the numbers actually, and if this thing has the same damage, it's actually going to be less. It's going to do less than the old H340 has. To take into account how broken those things used to be, or still are right now in the current war. And the collies now have a 94.5, which I just call 95 because it's easier. So the 75 is going to be basically an upgraded 40 mil, like doing 1,000 damage instead of 600, and 95 is going to be um, upgraded 68, doing 1,000 damage. And then it seems 75 will be better against structures, and 95 is better against tanks. So collies and wardens also got new emplaced guns. Another thing to talk about is emplaced guns. Collies got their own versions of what already existed. So collies got a instead of both sides having the same flak gun, the collies now have a tri-barreled flak gun, and instead of having the old 68 AT emplaced gun, they now have a dual arc RPG, which if you know how good a bone saw is, that seems very, very good. But moving on, both factions also got new emplaced guns. So the collies got a emplaced 75, while the wardens got a 95. And it seems these will not be able to stack. You're gonna have to manually load them like you do Artie, so that you can only have one in its inventory at a time. We also have rocket artillery. Wardens get a rocket arty push gun, so you know wardens get more early game anti-structure. We definitely so need it. We totally don't have enough of that. But the you also get the two vehicle variants for each side. The wardens get a half track with with rockets on the back, and then the collies get a truck with rockets on the back. We have two new tank variants, one of the Gallinger, one of the Hatchet. The Um, Warden variant is a bone saw. It has 8 bone saw mortars on the back and a storm rifle on the front. I think this thing is gonna be so good, but I'll talk about that later. And then the collies get a 75 light tank, which also seems very, very good. So battle tanks have been added back into the game. There's actually now um, 2 different tanks. I'm actually not sure if there used to be 2 tanks, 2 different types of battle tanks, but there are now. Um, Super heavy tanks got added. Warden collies get a twin 68 super heavy tank, and the wardens get a 95 millimeter with twin quad mortars on the back. So that is 2 little rotating guns that have 4 barrels each. Um, Now there's also been more stuff with the trains. So you've got obviously you've got your 2 logi things, your like scrap hauler one and your flatbed version, but then you also have combat versions. So you have a passenger car that can hold 6 with um an additional 2 that can mount tripod weapons on the slots. So like any tripod weapon in the game can be put on the passenger car. Um, there are 2 more combat oriented cars. The Wardens get a twin 40 mil car, and the Collies get a car that has one 40 mil, and then a machine gun on each side, so twin machine guns. And of course, we end it with the Storm Cannon train car. Super hyped for that.